What we've seen over the last 2 years is a gap between the overarching narrative, a gap between the Faucian pronouncements of what needed to be done, and then the actual data that supported or did not support those policies.
Something that has been missing and been hard to find over the past 2 years, which is open discussion and transparency about some of the policies that we've seen over the last 2 years.
5% at most, it seems, from a lot of the published data, of COVID was actually spread in schools. Some studies as low as 1%. And some of this used pretty elegant contact tracing.
You know, it took me about a year into the pandemic before it became really clear that it wasn't obvious at all that any policy was strongly effective at reducing COVID infections or death.
We've really had an inversion of the precautionary principle, and I think that's a great theme because it relates to school closures, lockdowns, masks.
The proper place of science and society needs to be restored so that scientists can advise but not dictate policy. And then I believe that lockdowns themselves, once we have fully evaluated them, will be seen as an enormous mistake.
There is no justification for mandating vaccines for children, full stop. We're of the strong opinion that if there is risk, there must be choice. This is fundamental medical bioethics 101.
We don't know what the risk-benefit ratio is. So I think under those circumstances, it's unethical to mandate vaccinations for children.
It is very difficult when you're talking to a patient and right between you, there's a mandate.
2 years, now we can say, the benefit of hindsight, that the measures, in fact, didn't do very much to slow down the spread.
Lockdowns are plausible, but they're not scientific. And the scientific evidence, as we've seen, is how harmful they've been.
I just, again, hope that this recognition, we can move forward and prevent this from occurring in the future and recognize schools are essential.
I think that this discussion has crystallized a lot of things I think we've seen. I mean, you have this lack of trust in the medical establishment and in the CDC and the politicization of those institutions, and that's not going to bode well for us as a society going forward. An aversion to actual data if it conflicts with the narrative, and then really a failure to weigh costs and benefits, whether that's lockdowns, whether that's school closures, or whether that's even something about, whether a healthy 7-year-old kid should get the COVID vaccine.